Hello everybody, today is Friday, June 12th, 2020. It is around 5 o'clock p.m. Just got off the subway at the Grand Central subway station. This is the 7 train platform. Right now it's supposed to be rush hour, but it's only the first week when New York City has reopened and there doesn't seem to be too many people here right now. That might change when phase 2 happens though. As you can see in the subway, they now have these social distancing stickers to let you know where you should stand to say a safe distance from others. This is what's being done now to protect people in the subway system. They're also cleaning the trains overnight every day. Today I'm going to do a walk of 42nd Street all the way from the 42nd Street Grand Central subway station to the Hudson River. Definitely not the New York I know. 42nd Street Grand Central at this time should be packed with people waiting to go home, catching the subway trains, but New York right now doesn't have the office workers. Office workers, for the most part, are still ordered to work from home. The trains are arriving quite frequently, though, as you can see, so that's a good thing. I'm getting off at the 3rd Avenue exit and 42nd Street. Temperature right now is 84 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 29 degrees Celsius. Someone knew me, wow. Saying action kid running down the stairs while catching his train. Never had that happen before on a non-live video. That's pretty cool. Okay, I just reached the street level. Let's see how New York City is at this time during the phase 1 reopening of New York City, which doesn't include most of the office workers of Midtown Manhattan, as I stated before. Phase 1 really only includes the construction workers and the retailers, but the retailers are all required to do curbside pickup and delivery only. This is the first retailer I see, Foot Locker, but the Foot Locker has their doors closed. Actually, I want to go the other way. Going that way is going towards the East River and the United Nations. That's the other side of 42nd Street. There still seems to be a little bit of activity around. Also, more car traffic than what I've seen from like 2 months ago. Before, there would be like literally no other car on the road except for 1 or 2, but now there's activity picking up. Although I think New York will take quite some time to recover from this. Right now, in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic, New York City is also dealing with the George Floyd protests. Because of those protests, some people were trying to take advantage of the situation by looting businesses and creating crimes. That's not so good. It's unfortunate with the George Floyd protests that there's problems like that happening. Here's Lexington Avenue and 42nd Street. lot of cars on Lexington Avenue here. By the way, here's the famous Chrysler building, designed by the architect of William Van Allen. Chrysler building, as you can guess, is based on the motor vehicle company. It competed with the Empire State Building to become the tallest building in the world, but the Empire State Building beat it. This area of 42nd Street should have way more people here, just because I'm right next to Grand Central Terminal to my right. And here's a business here, boarded up. It's the Cipriani on 42nd Street. So right here is the famous Grand Central Terminal, home to the Metro-North Railroad and future Long Island Railroad. The first Grand Central station was built in 1871, but this building opened to the public in 1913. It's in the Beaux-Arts style. You can look up more of Grand Central Terminal at my narrated video. And I believe October 2019, I do a pretty in-depth walkthrough of the terminal itself. But if you go in there right now today, you'll probably see an empty station there, especially in the main concourse. I did a separate video of Grand Central Terminal about 2 or 3 weeks ago where I went inside, recorded it in 4K, and it was empty and very spooky. I've never seen Grand Central Terminal like that, even at like 2 o'clock in the morning on a normal day. And they even rearranged some of the entrances. You can't even go into Grand Central Terminal from the entrance underneath the viaduct anymore. You need to go in on Vanderbilt Avenue. Right here we have the topped out Vanderbilt building. 1 Vanderbilt. I like to call it the pencil because of how thin it is. Here we have Blue Bottle Coffee. They do say it's open, it's limited hours though, from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. But again, dining establishments have no dine-in service, only pickup or delivery only, or takeout. I guess pickup and takeout are the same thing. Here's another view of 1 Vandy. Gigantic skyscraper going next to Grand Central Terminal. Not the first time that Grand Central Terminal has had gigantic skyscrapers built right next to it or behind it. The owners of Grand Central Terminal, they sold their land or they leased their land to other companies to raise money, because back then the railroad industry was declining, so they became a real estate company. But even so, that wasn't enough to save Grand Central Terminal from eventual destruction. And if it wasn't for landmarks efforts to preserve the building, Grand Central Terminal won't be standing anymore. Here's Madison Avenue. Pretty quiet on Madison Avenue. I have to say though, there are more people than I expected on 42nd Street. Newsstand still closed though. If the local newsstand is not open, then I really don't consider New York City to be open until the newsstand's open. Right now, the only news you're gonna get is a shuttered gate at the newsstand, or maybe an old magazine or old newspaper if you're lucky. But no current issues right now. Pointing my camera at Sephora, that's all boarded up. Really sad to see business like this closed up, boarded up. Now, even though they are boarded up though, I did learn that some businesses are still open even though they're boarded up. You just place the order or you call in and they'll actually open the store and give you your order when you pass by. But I don't know how many businesses that applies to. I don't even know if it's financially viable for them to do that. Many of these businesses will have to reevaluate whether or not it's worth it to stay open. Look at this. Here's a business now that's available for food use, prime retail, and that one's boarded up. I don't even know what that place used to be, probably a restaurant. All right, folks, the most famous street in New York City, 5th Avenue. How's 5th Avenue doing? Quiet. Although there are a few cars here, but not as much as there should be. I'll just move my camera up, let you see some skyscrapers while I wait for the light to change. There it is. One Vanderbilt, Chrysler Building, all that goodness. All right, let's cross the street now. Here's another famous building, the main branch of the New York Public Library. That building, I think, is closed. I don't think the libraries and museums will open until Phase 4. For those of you who don't know, New York City, as well as New York State, is opening up in 4 stages. On the Phase 1, which just happened on Monday, that includes construction jobs, retail jobs, agriculture, forestry, wholesale, and manufacturing. Under Phase 2, most of the office workers will come back to work. And I think some personal care businesses, those are the main ones. Under Phase 3, the restaurants will open up. But even though they open up, they won't be opening up fully. There'll be rules on how much they could take in, how many people they could have in the store at once. The capacity needs to be limited. So business as a whole is going to have to change. And then under Phase 4, that mainly has to do with the entertainment and tourism industry, the hotels, not the restaurants, the theaters, the museums. I don't really know when New York City is going to finally reopen from all of this. Even after Phase 4 comes by, it won't be the same as before. I'm sure there's still going to be rules on social distancing, mask usage, all of that stuff. By the way, there's Amazon Go across the street. They do have physical locations in New York City. Well, let's go take a look of a detour into Bryant Park. Okay, Bryant Park seems to have a few people here. Not as much as usual though. The same day last year, you'll probably see all of these tables filled. Right now the lawn looks like it's being enjoyed. They opened up the lawn for use. And this is brand new now. Look at this. In Bryant Park, there's a hand washing station. They never used to have a hand washing station before. Also with soap available. But if you want to use the restroom here, there's no restroom available. That restroom is closed. It's a living statue here, helping clean up the park. And here, look at this, they even have directions and instructions on how to travel in Bryant Park. That's something that was unfathomable a few months ago. If the present me went back in time and talked to the previous version of me, and I had to explain all the current events happening now, I think my past self would have a hard time grasping it all. I'll be like, what? Social distancing what? What's that? And I'll be like, what? Corona what? We have to stay home? And I can't even imagine New York City being like this now, after how crowded it was before, and now it's like this. At least the food stands are still open, Waffle and Dinges and Bread's Bakery. These businesses actually will do well at this time because there's outdoor seating. And even in these outdoor areas, they have tape here indicating where you need to stand and line up. Here's 6th Avenue. Only have 2 seconds to cross, but I should be okay. Now, I did try to walk down to Times Square on Monday, on the first day of phase 1, but the New York City Police Department blocked off all the routes to Times Square. So now I'm redoing it. Okay, I just saw something that was very troubling and something that I do need to address. And if you don't like what you're hearing, then I advise you to mute the audio right now. This is your last warning. So, I saw that man there defecating and doing number 2 on the sidewalk. And to me, that's just a really bad sign of the times, that now you can't even find a restroom. I said that Bryant Park, the restrooms are closed. It's really a shame that we have to have people here doing their business on the public sidewalk. I know when I was here, I think about a month ago, I went inside Central Park to walk around and there was no restroom available even inside Central Park. So I walked down 8th Avenue. I tried to look for a restaurant to let me use their restroom. McDonald's said the restroom was out of order, it didn't work. Many of the restaurants, they only had counter service and didn't even let me inside. I went to the police precinct and the police precinct didn't even let me use the restroom. So it is a real problem, folks. I did even read an article that's saying that public urination and defecation now is being more common because the city doesn't want to address this. Sure, you have the economy open, but New York City was already in desperate need of restrooms before. And if you don't have the facilities ready for people when they open up, there's going to be people doing their business all over the place. So, end of my rant there. But I feel like it is important. If New York City wants tourism to be back, the restrooms have to work and they need to be available. All right, so now I'm in the Times Square neighborhood. Originally, this area was named Longacre Square, but was named Times Square after the New York Times moved to the area. And where I pointed my camera up over here, this is one Times Square where the New Year's ball drops. Right now I do see a lot of police in Times Square right now, although the access to Times Square is available. They're letting people cross the street. I don't know why Times Square was so heavily guarded on Monday and still like this today. I would think it has something to do with the George Floyd protests. But I don't really know what's going on. The police department didn't even tell me on that day what was going on. But I'm not about to go into the heart of Times Square if the cops are closing it off. Okay, let's continue down 42nd Street. I don't even think I could walk on the other side of 42nd Street, let alone go into the heart of Times Square. But I thought that would have been a great video to do, to go into Times Square on phase 1 reopening, but always have to have a backup plan in New York City. But we're about to pass some Broadway theaters here. Here's the Amsterdam Theater, home of Aladdin. And over here, the New Victory Theater, home of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. By the way, that play is 2 parts. Parts 1 and 2, you have to pay for both. But who knows when Broadway will be able to open up safely. I know the official story is that they'll open up in September, but I really doubt that they'll be able to address all the concerns by then. There's going to be a lot of capacity issues, and the other thing is, will it be financially viable to see a Broadway play if they only have half occupancy? It may not be worth the actors' salaries and the props and the special effects. It's really a shame because these people are so talented, they deserve better. And I hope that they, get the respect and the recognition they deserve, as well as, the money they deserve, because it's not easy putting on these Broadway plays. There's a lot of work involved. And to live stream or to web stream a Broadway play is not viable either, because you really need to experience the show in person. You can only get so many angles from one camera. If you're in person, you actually get to feel like the effects and the lights and all the props, and you can see wherever you want. And look at the audience too. It's a lot more that goes in than just the, the play itself. But I see a lot of boarded up businesses in Times Square still. Here's the large Dave & Buster's, all boarded up. Applebee's, I think, is open, but only for takeout. The lights are off though, so I'm not even sure. But even though restaurants are allowed to be open, many of them choose not to. Just due to what I said before, it's not even financially viable to hire the people to go back and cook food. Here's Modell's. Modell's is closing for sure. They declared bankruptcy. Wow, take a look at this theater, AMC Theater. This theater shows a lot of foreign films, but this one's all boarded up. But who knows if the movie industry will be viable anymore either, because many people now have gotten accustomed to watching movies at home. Why do they need to go to a theater now with tens or hundreds of other people crammed in? Will it make sense anymore? I don't know. Our world has completely changed. Okay, here's 8th Avenue. This is always a busy intersection, although a lot less than what it was before. Port Authority bus terminal across the street from me. By the way, you can use the restroom at the Port Authority bus terminal, although it is hard to find. It's on the 3rd floor on the north wing. You need to take the escalator up to the 3rd floor. It's in the ticketed area, but they let you go in and use the restroom. So if you need one in a pinch, that's where you can go. But this is the world's busiest bus terminal. You have many long distance buses here, as well as regional commuter buses. Most of them here go to New Jersey. They connect directly to the Holland Tunnel. And they're strict with security now. Only one entrance open. They have the Port Authority police guarding the entrance. City bike station outside Port Authority. Cycling has seen a big boom due to coronavirus because people feel unsafe using trains, among other things. Here's an advertisement for MedRite offering COVID-19 antibody testing. Although it doesn't look like a medical center right now. Or maybe this is it. It's hard to tell sometimes when they have the scaffolding up. It's really annoying. It really distracts from the aesthetics of the neighborhood. Here it is, urgent care. COVID-19 antibody testing. I did hear that you can get COVID-19 testing for free if you're eligible. I'm not sure if it's offered to everyone, but you can now get tested in a lot of medical centers and urgent care centers in New York City. There's a parking garage. Parking garages, I know, have taken a huge revenue hit because there were very few cars driving in the city before and many open parking spots. So Why pay for a parking garage when you can get parking on the street for much less? Some of these parking garages, they're like $50 an hour. Pretty ridiculous, but that's how expensive it can get in New York City. But instead of paying $50 an hour, people can pay like $5 an hour for coin parking or meter parking on the streets. Here's 9th Avenue. Many cars here turn left here to get to the Holland Tunnel. You know, this entire time I was mentioning Holland Tunnel, but it's actually the Lincoln Tunnel. I got my tunnels mixed up. The Holland Tunnel is in Lower Manhattan and the Lincoln Tunnel is right here in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood. Once in a while I do make mistakes. Here's the Polynesian restaurant. The hotel's not closed, they say. Here's Theater Row. I don't think this is a Broadway theater. There's many off-Broadway theaters on this side of 42nd Street. A Broadway theater is classified as such because it holds more than 500 seats. Less than 500 seats is not considered a Broadway theater. I think there's two other classifications. One is off-Broadway and the other one might be like, I forget what. Here's the Theater Row Diner. This one's closed until further notice. There's an inexpensive rate for parking, $21.12 for up to 12 hours for an early bird special. That's not bad. The only other alternative along 42nd Street is to risk getting a ticket from the New York City Police Department by waiting in the taxi. No way, it's not a taxi stand. It's a truck loading zone. I don't know how much that fine is. Probably over $100, I would think. The fines here for driving in the city can sometimes be very outrageous. Large grocery store and supermarket across the street, the Food Emporium. This is the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood. Sometimes referred to as Midtown West or Midwest or Clinton, but most people refer to this area as Hell's Kitchen. It is a historical name. People don't know where it comes from, but lore has it that back in the day this was a very dangerous neighborhood and undesirable, so they gave the nickname as Hell's Kitchen. One of my viewers also joked that it's Hell's Kitchen because his ex-girlfriend used to live here and had a kitchen. Looking down 10th Avenue. Doesn't seem to be too busy. Then again, this isn't one of the main avenues of New York City. The other ones are closer to 5th Avenue, around that area. Just pains my heart to see someone there in need begging for money. You really know that times are tough when people are out here on the streets trying to make it by every day, and the city doesn't do enough for them. It's one thing to have, a pandemic and people staying home and whatnot, but when the city doesn't have enough resources for these people in need, that's when you know that something's wrong. I did mention a few weeks ago that all New Yorkers are able to get free meals at the New York City Department of Education schools. You can look up online every weekday from 11:30 to 1:30. That's 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. You're able to go inside a school and pick up free meals. So I wish that more people would know about it. At least the city has that option available. I think this is a police station. I don't think it's the Midtown police station, it's the Strategic Response Group. That's what the SRG stands for. Not sure what consists of a strategic response, but let's take a look at some of these tall buildings on Hell's Kitchen. This is the neighborhood where more people live. Down by Fifth Avenue, Grand Central Terminal, nobody really lives there, if at all. Those are all office buildings and retail stores. But I'm sure that many of these buildings are vacant now or about to be, because I know many people are reconsidering living in New York after what's going on, just due to the decline in activity, the lack of regularity in life, and also the expensive prices of New York City. They don't think it justifies what's going on right now, and I don't blame them. Many people are actually moving away from New York City, downsizing into smaller places or the suburban areas. A lot of traffic here on 11th Avenue. This is all going towards the Lincoln Tunnel. Okay. The walk signal is on, but it's still hard to cross the street. Here we have some the Natural Market, the local community grocery store. Just look at how impressive these tall buildings are. Here's Sky. I'm not sure how the situation is in one of these high-rise residential buildings now because of the social distancing rules with elevators and enclosed spaces. I did read an article that many businesses limit only 4 people on the elevator at a time. And just because of that, you may be waiting a long time to go to your floor or descend, because if the business is busy or the building's busy, you need to wait for other people to use the elevator. I can't imagine how it is right now. But it might be easier if the building is at half occupancy or a fraction of its occupancy, then the elevators would be freed up. My solution to riding in busy elevators is to go up when you want to go down, ride the elevator all the way to the top, and then you're guaranteed to get into the elevator, or vice versa. Here's ⁴ River Place, also a very, very impressive building complex.
Bro, don't record me, bro. Don't record me. I'm breaking shit. Don't record me, bro.
Okay. Well, I just did record him. He didn't break my shit, but I didn't want to. I was pointing the camera up. Either he was playing with me, or just teasing me, or really mad. But hey, I'm allowed to record people. This building here is the embassy of the People's Republic of China. Doesn't look too inviting. All stone. But I made it to the end, folks. And my battery died. So I don't think I'll finish the walk to the river. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. And I'll see you all next time. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.